Alright everyone, hello and welcome back to another installment of a Keeper's Reaction, except this time we're doing Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. And yes, this video is coming out a little bit later than previously expected because I got the vid. I've been living my own form of just an eldritch horror of being sick. Oh fuck, that's hot. But today is a Keeper's Reaction. That means that I, Ben, a Keeper of Arcane Lore, means I run Call of Cthulhu. You know the bit by now, but essentially, if you have questions about what something might be in a piece of Cthulhu Mythos media, like, I don't know, Housing Complex C, I'm the guy to break that down for you. But anyway, we're going to be doing Pickman's model today, the first in the Cabinet of Curiosities installments. Let's take a look together, shall we?
Fear.
They make artists seem so much cooler in this version of Art School at Arkham. Like, look at this man. He's getting in it with, like, a rich man's daughter. He's, like, they wear nice snazzy clothes, which I've never seen an art student in my life choose a suit unless they were pretentious. You know who you are. The one thing about the artists is none of them have faces that I'm like, don't feel like are punchable except for our lead actor. I don't know if they just made him prettier than the rest or like it casted everyone to seem much smugger than they needed to be. Legend himself. Pickman shows up in a lot of additional media. He's actually also featured within the Dream Quest of Yog-Sothoth, where he takes an additional sort of shape to the monster that is featured within this. It's presumed that he then migrated to the Dreamlands at the end of the story in, spoilers, his death, and even became one of the beasts that is featured within the story. Sir, calm down. It's a class. Studying shape. You're not supposed to do a creative take on anything. This is a fundamentals class. No, sir. I mean, you did a good job getting it all done already, but yeesh.
I think the rats got to it.
Oh, Bast will not be happy, my dudes. And don't really heavily go into why he does the graveyards through this, I don't think. It's just like, I've been living in the witch side of the mythos. Are you trying to emulate? Yeah, you're trying to emulate. We got some bad news for you. Pickman's not painting just ugliness and creepiness. He's painting the mythos. He's infusing his knowledge of the impossible with hard canvas. He's creating a mythos tome, if you will, by doing this. You're not going to be able to paint anything like his without a first-hand experience, let alone a grasp of what it actually is.
My family been in New England for generations since before.
My dude, no. This is a little freaky. I'm not going to lie. Oh, the slight movement. You're looking at a mythos painting, buddy. Because he knows everything about it. And he can put his own little twist of the universe right in there. Oh, I love how they show this. And there's the symbol. That's a secondary version of an elder sign. Okay, with the extra version of the elder sign. First of all, again, there's like a bunch of descriptions of these, and this has been classified as an elder sign. And again, elder signs are symbols of protection. However, the idea of going with this version instead of the classic is an interesting take.
A quick addendum to this, the six-pointed branch style elder sign was actually drawn up by H.P. Lovecraft himself when he was writing a letter describing the sign. That being said, the six-sided star does show up in his work, specifically the Lurker at the Threshold short story. However, Lurker at the Threshold was published by Augustus Derleth, and Augustus Derleth's contributions to the mythos have been problematic to say the least. But most people do use the star elder sign. So I guess that's a win for Augustus Derleth. That's a new one.
Elder signs can always have, again, whatever meaning they might take. So someone that may have an elder sign scratched into their head maybe trying to commune with a specific god, or maybe trying to keep certain things out of their head. Although, again, I think that really here in its use, it's not really trying to set any sort of hard magic rules. It is just trying to show that Lovecraftian connection that this woman has to the outer gods and how profound her magic is. Also, it's really just meant to be unsettling in this instance. I don't think that they're doing anything extra with it. All right, well, you're gonna want to get away from there. Yeah, I'd have that response as well. I feel like that would be a little too much for my brain. In all fairness, you were not ready for that. I don't think anyone was. Ooh, I'm gonna have to blur that up as well, but it's ugly. I promise you, that's a bad idea. I absolutely promise you it's a bad idea. You could run the other direction. What's he gonna do? Turn the horses around on a dime? He ain't gonna follow you. You can go. Yep. Ooh, that's big no bueno. Now, one of the things that I love about how this entire episode and adaptation treats Lovecraftian media is the way that these paintings are creeping into the mind of the protagonist. And this is something that we see throughout the entire episode, and there's a really, really clean escalation of it as well. But the fact is that each of these are a representation of the mythos that are so unfathomable that they would drive you mad. Now, originally the idea here was that the shapes themselves were impossible to look at, or the depictions were impossible to look at, but that's not how the film is treating it, because ultimately speaking, Lovecraft would do this really weird thing where he'd be like, it's undescribable, and then describe it. And then of course in film and TV, you have to show your hand at some point, so you're not going to be able to avoid describing things because the camera will have to do that. So instead what they do here is they sort of show the way that it's sort of creepily animated and sort of retching itself into your head, which is phenomenal in its execution. And then the way that it's also sort of inducing these other sort of visions, these delusions, hallucinations, whatever you want to call them. It's really doing a great job of having us question reality from the main character's point of view, and fully buying that these paintings should not be seen by the public. And then the idea that a weaker mind looking at these will be driven absolutely insane is kind of perfect. If you are the kind of person that actually runs or plays Call of Cthulhu, I would recommend taking a look at some of the Pulp Cthulhu rules for this kind of thing if you wanted like a really sort of hands-on, hard magic-y kind of explanation of what's going on. Because what we would consider these paintings is they would be kind of their own form of a mythos tome that when looking at, you would begin to sort of understand the mythos, and it would make you more and more insane unless you started actually grasping onto the concepts. And then even then, Pickman would have what would be called like an enhanced ability or a mythos ability, where it's not necessarily a spell that he's actively casting, but he has such a strong understanding of the mythos and such a mastery of the art form of actually painting that he can infuse them all together to create these living pieces of art. Okay, now we're in solid Prohibition era. Let's be snug and debate art and somehow decree what good art is from our armchairs. Again, I would like everyone to imagine modern art students somehow ending up in business suits and being in these pristine conversations about the quality of art. There we go. I'm a grown man now. I have a family and a mustache. That's how we're going to show that time has passed by. God, they have such a nice fucking house. How did he go to art school and have such a nice fucking house? I'm upset. This ain't even 1950s American Dream. This is just like what it is. What is going on? That's not his house. That is not the living room. Slash landing room. What do you call it? A great room? A landing room? I don't know. The foyer? Do you have a butler? Seem a little confused. I am getting like Haunting of House Hill vibes with this main room though. Are you going to open the big fancy door? It's a door of very wealthy people. You don't seem to be familiar with it. Ooh, that just swung and the lights blew on the... That does not bode well, sir. Did you step into the woods? Seems jovial. I wonder what we're having for dinner. What are we having? Ooh, that's not very good. I think the feet might be a little undercooked. Crabs are still alive. I like the idea of we're keeping the crustaceans and the octopi living. It's not very good when everyone looks at you like that. That's Pickman's witch lady. It's Pickman's mom. Has got it going on. I mean, that checks. You wouldn't want to be married to her. I don't think that works out for you. But, like, maybe smash. Oh. Yep, you're looking at definitely one of Pickman's works. God, I love how they are showing unfathomable consequences to this. That is Lovecraftian. That right there is the definition of Lovecraftian over cosmic horror. Fuck yeah. He'll be having everyone fucking, like, going nuts just with the fucking crayons. He don't need no paints to get his medium across. He just needs visual, baby. I will say, as much as, like, Pickman's in it, he's not necessarily a bad dude. I do love the idea of everyone that lives in this world can have some minor brush up against the true mythos. Like, Pickman's able to empathize right now because he knows that she's talking about a legitimate experience. I can't bring myself to dislike Pickman.
Do thank your wife.
God, they got a big fucking house. Why do they have such a big fucking house? Ah, he's rich because he's not an artist. It makes sense. But this is the thing that makes it such a good Lovecraftian adaptation, is there's something that he can't put his finger on about the information that's being given to him, that's causing him to go mad every time he looks at the paintings. And we as an audience understand it. It doesn't feel weird because we see the weird visions like like this one. Oh boy, what happens when you look up? What's going on? This is a little too kinky. Nope. I don't want to get kinky with 4 pilgrims. Ah, Yog-Sothoth's in there. Nope. The first mythos god that is mentioned, Yog-Sothoth. Now, we literally just did an entire series where it was revealed that a certain character was Yog-Sothoth. And just as a quick reminder, Yog-Sothoth, not an anime girl. Just want to remind everyone, this is much more closer to the faithful depiction. Although it's not really a depiction of Yog-Sothoth themselves, it's more of a depiction of the kind of people that would seek Yog-Sothoth's power. And this would be witches, and in particular, witches that have their place within Arkham. Again, the Dunwich horror does this very, very well, where you can see that there is a wizard practitioner in Dunwich who has been convening with this outer god, and that's how the entire plot of that happens. But Yog-Sothoth does give power to these people, and they would make pacts for magic. Yog-Sothoth would totally be down for this in all the stories. Like, human sacrifice is just kind of like, yeah, they accept it. Again, we're not seeing the face of a god in this like we would in perhaps other adaptations of Lovecraftian media. But we do get to see how it's being practiced. And one of the things that I love is that they never outright tell you what Yog-Sothoth is. Because at the end of the day, a really important thing within cosmic horror is to show bits and pieces of your hand without fully explaining what's going on. Even if you have the entire universe up here, you should not explain everything that's happening. The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath does so much lore dumping in a way that's like, this is side information, but you don't really need it for this story. It's just world building. And then you jump into another story that you may have read previously, and go, I understand more of what's going on here, and now I'm richer for that experience. When you're world building within horror in particular, it's really important to have the pieces scattered in their own sort of mystery way, because you never want to disillusion the story that you are telling midway. You always want that to be shrouded in mystery. You never want to show too much of your hand at once, and the story just does it great. God, these are some of my favorite fucking monsters in the mythos. I never know if Pickman wants him to go insane, if he wants just genuine connection, or if it's a bit of column A and column B. Maybe he doesn't see viewing his paintings as going insane. Maybe he views them as seeing the truth. God. Fucking love this character. And this actor fucking nails it. Absolutely. There's your creepy door. Oh, God. This does give me Housing Complex C vibes of seeing all of the art of the mythos just plastered around. Except I feel like this is significantly better done for a couple reasons. Again, they only ever allude to it. What the rats eat must have run short. And it's got rings styled well at the center of the basement, which is also funny in its own right. Be careful. A lot of the art just on the walls is going to have you freaking out. That's Ithaca, I think. There's our grand painting. That could be the Black Goat of the Wood, actually. That might be, yeah, that could be Shub Niggurath. Now, some of the paintings in here, I gotta love, but the first one that I gotta give attention to is one that we have talked about on the channel before, Shub Niggurath. Shub Niggurath is the fertility god and is also called the Black Goat. And what you clearly see here is a black goat with some people bowing before it and these sort of corpse-like things tucked into it. An important thing to note is that these are probably not perfect visual translations. These are just depictions. A really good example of this is the version of Cthulhu that we know of is not actually the canonical Cthulhu. It's actually an artist interpretation from the Call of Cthulhu of what they thought this being might look like, and was like shown in like this really crude sketch that I'm going to put on the screen. And that's what's evolved into Cthulhu. But ultimately speaking, Cthulhu's, when you look at them, you're not supposed to understand really what the fuck is going on. So in a similar light, Shub Niggurath has taken on multiple sort of visual standpoints because we're not supposed to understand what's happening. There's really hard adaptation versions where they go with the sort of black goat imagery, which does lend itself pretty well to some like more hardcore demon-y type things, but other versions have gone the more cosmic horror route. One of the main giveaways that this is Shub Niggurath is actually those things that are sticking out, which could be an interpretation of Dark Young. Now, Dark Young are essentially these sort of like proto-Shub Niggurath things. They're kind of like trees, but not really, because Shub Niggurath is also supposed to be kind of like a tree, but not really. And they fall out of Shub Niggurath. They are the 1,000 young that she keeps birthing to, as she is also known as the mother of 1,000 young. And they can be pretty freaky, and the idea can be pretty gross. So yeah, take that as you will.
Stop it.
He's
What are you doing?
completely... He's getting a painting. Oh, I'm going to be upset every time. In case you can't tell, I like Richard Pickman. There it is. He is really silly looking. There is the, to my knowledge, the first on-screen version of a ghoul. Ghouls are corpse-eating pseudo-zombies, or at least they're zombies in a lot of other pieces of media. However, in the Lovecraft and the Cthulhu Mythos, they're actually somewhat human. So earlier on, when he's like, my great ancestors made a deal and like practiced this witchcraft stuff, part of it included cannibalism. And one of the main ways in which you become a ghoul is you partake within their rites. Now, the big thing that ghouls do is mostly they eat human corpses. And every time that we're in the graveyard, that's what's going on. That's what's happening. And there's this one line towards the ghoul reveal where he's talking about that the rats have lost their normal food source. And he's sort of chuckling to himself about this. This is an implication that the rats were previously feasting on the bodies of the fresh corpses in the graveyards, but now the ghoul has taken up residence there and is sort of Pickman's aficionado. This gets even crazier when we start going into the expanded universe of the Cthulhu Mythos, because Pickman in particular, this is not his only story. He also appears within the Dream Cycle, specifically the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, in which he is somewhat going through a transformation to become one of these ghouls. And this all takes place in the Dreamlands, and it is thought that in his death, because he must have had some connection to the Dreamlands, and apparently he must have been friends with the main character of that, Randolph Carter, at some point within his tenure at Miskatonic University. But he is halfway to become a ghoul, and not only that, he's also leading a ghoul army to help the protagonist to get to Kadath, which is basically Mount Olympus, but for Lovecraft's pantheon. And the Dreamlands are their own sort of really, really weird thing. I can talk about them more in another video. There's actually supposed use of it in the next episode based off of how they did their adaptation for Dreams in the Witch's House, which was not originally part of the Dream Cycle, but they do treat it like it's one of those stories. Anyway, I digress. Lovecraft was very sort of not coy, but a little bit different in his descriptions of ghouls based off of what they went with. What they went with here is a little bit more bulbous, a little bit more frog-like, but still has some of the key features. What Lovecraft originally had, however, was much more canid and canine-like in appearance. So they weren't quite dogs, but they were noted as having these features. They still had this sort of mossy appearance and more sort of half-humanoid to humanoid pieces to them. And we can see that at least in the fact that this thing's bipedal. But this ghoul is just significantly more out there. And design-wise, I think it's actually pretty cool. I don't like that that the story hasn't just ended. Mr. Malou. Oh, that's not supposed to be there. Yeah, that's Shub Niggurath. That's the black goat of the woods. Oh.
What have you done, Joe? It's okay.
Oh.
He is coming for the feast.
No.
He is coming from the darkness.
Now, the references of he's coming, they'll be here. This, again, could be anything. But although the show itself has been hitting us with Yog-Sothoth a lot, that would actually not be in character for Yog-Sothoth. This god does not care about humanity. And not in a, like, I don't care, so therefore I'll destroy them. It's more like, no, if you worship me, that's great. I would love to do some bullshit, but I'm not really interested in, like, your affairs. Like, the odds of Yog-Sothoth coming to Earth for any reason other than being summoned by someone that wants to do something Yog-Sothoth-y are just very unlikely. Now, on the other hand, the odds of Nyarlathotep showing up are very likely. And this is, again, the only god that ever canonically, like, shows up as something to sort of take action within the rest of the universe. So could we end up seeing a adaptation within this series later down the line? Potentially. It would be really cool to start seeing some connections and sort of building into the larger world of the Cthulhu Mythos, especially by Guillermo del Toro. He loves Lovecraft so much. I mean, if you've seen the Mountains of Madness teaser, like, test footage thing that he released earlier this year, you know that he has such a spot for this, and we should absolutely encourage this. He's the right person for the job on this, full-blown. This is just phenomenal execution. 10 out of 10. Yeah, that can't be the final note that we're leaving off on. It's just, guy fucked up his own face. I don't like that she's turned the other way and silent.
Smoking.
I forget how the short story ends. Oh no. What is this gonna...
It's all over.
I do not like this. We're gonna see some shit second we see her face or what she's cutting. Oh, the sound design changed. Ah, nope. I looked at one of Pickman's paintings once. What's the meal? It's in the oven. God. Nope. You know what's in there. To be fair, with all that smoke, she already did burn the meat. Ooh. So that's what Yog-Sothoth cultists are. Fuck. There's the painting. Fuck. That was fucked. It's such a good Lovecraft adaptation. I cannot overstate this. Now, as to how the art got there in the end, no fucking idea. Honestly, one of the really important things to remember is that, especially in Lovecraftian horror, you're not supposed to understand how things work. So H.P. Lovecraft would expand upon things in areas, and other people would expand upon things in areas that would maybe work as good behind the scenes context for if you're a writer and you want to have some slightly hard, fast rules to go by, but it still respects the soft magic-y point of the system. So the idea that, like, he paints these paintings and he's infused the mythos with them, and then they take on a life of their own and somehow survive being burned and still end up where they need to be. Totally plausible, and like, when you see that the paintings are still there despite being burned in that fire, you should be questioning reality at that point. Honestly, you might even question as to if Pickman was even killed in the way that we saw, or even if the last scene happened the way that we saw it. Although I do personally think that it did. I do think that what they were going for is that our main character just had a stronger will than other people who have looked at those paintings and was able to deal with it, where other people were less fortunate and either cooked their kids or almost gouged their eyes out. So take that as you will. But anyway, thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we will be back next week for more Cabinet of Curiosities. This time, you guessed it, Dreams in the Witch's House. Also subscribe, please. It's rude. You gotta subscribe.
Hey, that's not going to be happening next week because obviously next week is going to be in the middle of the Christmas and holiday season, and we're going to try not to be spending too much time publishing content and more time with our families. But in the new year, we will have more content like this, so I'll see you then.